here too much. My name is Howard Nimmons. You may or may not know me. I've been around the chamber for quite a number of years, a couple decades. I'm a CPA and a financial planner. My work experience is about 45 years, and that's about halfway split between big corporations and doing my own thing. Most all of the things that I've done has been of a process-oriented, you might say. I've installed bunches and bunches of accounting systems and done that type of work. I've done with that CPA, I've done thousands of tax returns. Probably I'm not going to talk much about tax today. That's a pretty broad topic for an hour, and sometimes that's a little difficult to talk about whenever you're dealing with a finite group, because it may interest one and may not interest anybody. So there's so many facets there, but we'll talk about it a little bit along the way here. But that's basically who I am and what I'm doing. I'm kind of retired. I'm not sure how to retire. I don't know. You, as all small business people, probably have a pretty good idea about what that feeling is. It's awfully hard to walk away. It's awfully hard to say, I'm done doing this. You know, my W-2 people, they put their stuff into a box and walk out the door. I just can't do that. I'm still active and involved and do things. I've cut my workload down. I'm going to play golf this afternoon, so that's my kind of deal. That's it. I was sharing with Jamie earlier that I'm also taking a Master Gardener class that I do every Thursday afternoon. So it's nice to be at a point in life where I can do a lot of different things. Alina, as you deal with your clients, this is what most of them want to do. They want to do their own thing. They want to find out different things and expand, and that's what I'm doing. So here I am talking about things to watch for in the pandemic. When Venus came to me and asked about doing this, I basically reacted with, well, I really don't want to tell people 10 new ways to do a bank reconciliation. I would rather do something a little broader because I see accounting as being a broader type of endeavor. If I look back on my career, I do a lot of systems work, a lot of procedures and policies and understanding the transactions that compose the business. And that puts me in kind of a unique position whenever we have situations like pandemics. And what do I do as an accountant to watch it? So I put together 10 things, and just to show you the kind of accountant I am, there's actually 11 on the list. So I couldn't even count to 10. I got jumped to 11 real quick. So that's my problem. The first thing that I've got here is watch your cash. Cash is really important. It doesn't matter whether we've got a pandemic or not. Cash is something you've got to guard. You have to understand what your needs are going to be, what's going to come about as we go along here. Anticipate. This is where you know the transactions of the business. You know that there's going to be an electric bill on the 5th of the month, a gas bill on the 23rd of the month. Payroll taxes are due on the 15th usually. Sales tax due around the 20th. You have to anticipate all those, and that's where watch your cash. You got to make sure that you got cash in the bank to do it. Dealing with as many small businesses as I have, that's the thing that seems to be one of the most difficult things to do. They do a settlement, they sell a big deal, they get a lot of money in the bank, and the first thing they do is go out and buy a boat. Well, you can't do that because you may have payroll, you might have other obligations to people other than the tax man. So that's something to watch out for. The second item is very close to that. That's monitoring the budget. And if you don't have a budget, you better get one. That's the very first thing to have here. Understand what your inflows and outflows are. You've got to be alert to what's going on. You're doing a budget. The example that I would give is somebody does a budget and they budget $10,000 of income for a particular month, and then they only get $8,000 in the first month, and all of a sudden they're concerned and say, well, I didn't achieve my budget. Well, maybe you did. because there's a lot of, we're looking for relationships in that budget. We're looking for how do all the things relate. If you're in a construction business, you've got materials to buy, and maybe that $8,000, you didn't achieve your $10,000 budget, you only got $8,000, but that's pretty, well, you didn't have to buy as many materials. Or maybe the material cost came in a lot less than what you anticipated. You have to understand the relationships of those numbers and how they fit each other and how they can work. So that's monitoring the budget is an important piece of the puzzle. Especially now, we're looking for efficiencies. We're this particular time where we're so strapped by all the different quarantines and lockdowns and shutdowns and that sort of stuff. That is something that Kim Brannon has joined us. My gosh, look out! But you're looking for efficiencies. You're looking for ways to cut some of those costs. Maybe do some things that are different. You're always if you're doing things the same old way during this time or any time, that's not a good idea. You need to look and be aware of things. Some of the things I'm going to talk about as I go later on here is taking some time for yourself, getting away from the business for a period of time and just thinking about things. I don't know what, it's surprising how you get some relaxed time and your memory cells, your synapses start to fire a little bit, and that's always good for us. Social media, I plugged this in here. I thought that was important at this time because we are so restricted as far as the people that we are with or around. It's a different kind of a connection that we're going to do. And it's important to have connections. I think in the past year, that's probably something that when you talk to people about the pandemic, about quarantines, about restrictions, one of the first things comes up is people are missing other people. And so social media gives you an opportunity to reinforce some of those relationships and to expand on those as much as you can. Also, it's a good spying tool. It's nice to look at what the competitor is doing, seeing what Ed Jones is doing there and all that type of stuff, seeing where they're at. That's important to do. I don't mind spying on my competitors and finding out what they're doing, talking to them. You talk to anybody in business, it's always nice to talk to people that are in similar businesses and find out how they're doing things, how they're handling some of the situations that we're faced with. Number 5 is pay bills on time. Boy, make sure that you maintain a contact with your suppliers, with your vendors. If you do, go back to that budget, or go back to that watching your cash element. If you do see that you're going to be short on money, and things happen. I mean, Melissa's in the roofing business. We were sharing some of those stories before we got started that winter's a tough time for a roofer. You don't do much roofing. And so you've got to understand that, let your vendors know. I know a little bit about the roofing business. I know that the suppliers there frequently make some pretty big discounts available to the roofers during the winter because the supplier wants to sell something too. And if the roofer is slow, then the supplier is slow. So they try to use some of those techniques to build their revenue up. If you do see that you're running out on the money is running short, then you may want to modify terms with your suppliers. Talk to them a little bit. See if there's some discounts that might be available. Can they spread that out instead of making it 30 days net? Maybe it's 60 days net. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe if it's a roofing contractor, I don't have to pay. I know the roofing contractor I dealt with, or the roofing supplier. They frequently would buy a lot of stock during the winter, and they wouldn't have to pay for that until April. So things are available. People will work with you, but you have to talk to them. It goes into that. That's the relationships that are out here. And I'm talking awful fast. Does anybody, if you've got a question or something, raise your hand, say something, let me know that you want to speak up. I see most people have got their mutes on, but if you want to participate, let me know. Guard relationships. This is a strange thing for an accountant to be talking about, but you've got to guard your relationships. You've got relationships with your customers. You've got relationships with your suppliers. You need to reach out to those people on a periodic basis. Maintain regular contacts. Pick up the files of your customers and look at that and pick out the 3 or 4 top customers you've got and make a phone call. That's important to do. Very important to do. Everybody especially in this time, people like to be recognized and acknowledged, and take some time to talk to those people and let them know kind of what's going on in your business. Find out what's going on in their business. How are they handling situations that are here? You might pick up some nuggets of information that would be useful for you. But the chamber is real good for this. This is a good place where the chamber fills a lot of roles for some social interaction. The monthly luncheons, the business after hours, those are all good places for mixing with folks and talking a little bit. And you don't have to be a real serious business discussion. It can just be casual type of thing, and it's surprising how much stuff you will get from that as you go along. Reaching out to customers. I kind of got ahead of myself. Finding ways to reward the good customers. That might be something you may want to do. I'm not, every business will be a little bit different, but finding ways to let those customers know that they're appreciated. Sometimes it may just be a thank you, maybe a handwritten note on the invoice when you send it out saying, we really appreciate your business. Let us know if there's something else we can do. I know from my business, it's very, very seldom that when I did some of those reach outs, frequently I got additional business. Surprisingly, I wasn't really seeking business, but I was wanting to interface with people and get ideas. And frequently somebody would say, I've got some money sitting over here at Helena's financial planning practice, and I'm going to bring that over to Nimmons. Helena won't even take off her mute for me on that. I think she's left me. There she is. Oh, there she is.
No, I'm right here. What you're saying is absolutely true, because if anyone has ever heard me talk, I talk about very similar things. Cash is king. You got to know your expenses. You got to know your income. You have to start saving. You got to pay your bills on time. Because if not, it ruins your credit. Number one, if you don't pay your bills on time, then you can't get any loans out because you have bad credit. So yes, absolutely, Howard. That what you're saying, I totally 100% agree, because I preach the same thing.
It's marvelous. The ability to talk to one another, I think, is the biggest thing here. Any number of clients when I was dealing with the accounting side of the business, I'd say, well, have you talked to the vendor? Have you talked to that customer about getting their account current? And they said, well, no, I didn't do that. And I said, people love to be talked to. It's amazing. They love to be recognized. They love to talk, even if it's a touchy subject, like their finances or their ability to pay the bills. That's always important to have. So that's
brought up a good point for me to reach out to our current customers.
Reach out.
We give out referral cash.
Yeah.
And
good.
That would be good for us to, you only need a roof once every 10 years or until a storm comes around.
Yeah.
So that is good information there to reach out to our current customers and just ask them for a referral.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt
Do
anything.
you know anybody? And
Yeah.
sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it works.
Right.
I mentioned there under reaching out to customers, the red carpet treatment. Boy, people love to be appreciated, and under promise and over deliver. Has anybody ever heard of that kind of stuff? I'm dealing with a client right now that's got a vendor that is really stringing him along on on a service that they're being provided. And they are missing deadlines left and right to the point where it's been going on for a couple, 3 months now. We're talking to the client about maybe finding another vendor to stop this project right in its tracks, cut the relationship and move on, because the supplier, the vendor, the resource person is not providing and isn't being communicated. We've given them a lot of opportunities and talked to them and said, hey, is there some problem on your side? Do you have an issue? Is there a business issue? Are you overloaded with work? That's overloaded with work is a good thing to talk about too, because you've got so many people that they grab for more business than they can really handle. And so you as business people have to understand when you've got to kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit. And that's really important to do. Know your limitations. That's Clint Eastwood said that, and that's a very, very true type of a statement. I know whenever we're all starting business, I was there. If I found somebody that could fog glass, I'd take them as a client. But that's not the best way to operate. Once you get up to a certain size, it's best to just work on really providing service to your clients and your customer base, and overdo. Really be very demonstrative about your experience with them. Always deliver on your promises. Let them know that you're promising something. You're going to do everything you can to make that delivery. Technology. I tell you, my career started out, when I started out, we didn't have desktop computers. We had a computer that we put onto a rollabout table, and we shared it in the office. Like 10 or 15 people might share it. What a life. Can you imagine that these days? Nobody would do anything like that at all. But that's where computers came from. But that's my technology, my past technology. And I know now that there are so many tools that are available to you. This kind of gets down to one of my items here is curiosity. Being aware and kind of reading and talking to people at chamber events, all that type of thing is good to find out what applications or what apps are available that you might be able to utilize to make your business more successful. This is what you do in these times, is you're looking for efficiencies. You're looking for ways to enhance your delivery system, ways to satisfy the customers. I know, people are using more of the Zoom calls to reach out. Any number of clients, I'm looking at doing some remodeling in my house, and I was at a lumber yard, and they told me that the vendor there, that the guy that makes the railings for a stairway, they actually have a website online that you can pick all the pieces and put it together, and it'll show you on the website what it looks like. And we did it, and it worked. It was really a neat thing. But that's the kind of thing you want to be looking out for in this world. Anytime you can automate, you want to try to do it. Be careful. The example I would use here is setting up automatic bill pay. Make sure that the people put their gym membership on auto pay. Every month it's going to take $30 out of the account. The people stop going to the gym, and that $30 keeps coming out of the account. So we don't want to have that happen if we can avoid it at all. So automation is good, but you still have to be aware, and you still have to watch and monitor and observe what's going on. Now is a good time to think about your product offering. If you make bird houses, let's say, maybe you want to expand that and make bird feeders now. Not a big difference, but look at what your current offerings are. Be contemplative. Think about things. Maybe you've got something that you can expand upon and grow to give you additional sources of revenue. At the same time, You want to look at places where you might want to exit a market and say, you know, maybe I don't need to do that anymore. Maybe that's a service or a function or a product that just doesn't have the pizzazz that it used to, or maybe it's gotten expensive to do it. I know, you know, looking at contractors, you know, things happen. Wood prices have just gone, doing some remodeling, I'm aware that wood prices have just skyrocketed like 4 times. I don't know that you get out of the business for that, but that certainly is something that you're aware of, and you want to try to explain that to your customer base. Be curious. Curious is a great term. Always be looking out for what you are, what's available. Increase your reading list. Expand your reading list. You want to look at things that, you know, different magazines than you may normally see. Newspapers, all kind. Of course, I see a couple iPads up here on the screen. People are using that. Those iPads are great. They help you really expand your reading capacity, and that's important to do. To look for different things that are going on. This is kind of unusual for an accountant to say that, but that's what's made my business successful. That's what helped me through a lot of years. Being aware of other ways to do things. You're looking at your competitors in some respects, trying to find out how they're doing their business, what they're doing to be successful. And then that final one, my final point was treat your employees right. I'm sure that all you with employees know how difficult it is to find an employee, a trustworthy employee, somebody that's going to be there at work and give you good effort. They're tough to find, and you want to do everything you can once you find them to keep them. It's kind of, when I decided to slow down my business, one of the big reasons was I had a difficult time finding good employees. And I don't think it was necessarily the employees. I think a lot of it was me. With 40 years of experience, I had certain ways that I wanted to do things, and I wasn't quite as flexible as I might have been in prior times. So that's was some of my self-discovery that I went through. So that's an important thing to do to find good employees. That's the points I've got. Helena, you mentioned that you were concerned about taxes and things. Do you have anything, a question in particular you would like me to address on the tax front?
Well, in actuality, I was hoping that you would share with the other people on there. A lot of them are small business owners. And a lot of times the comprehension of, they make a lot of money or in certain areas and so forth, they bring a lot of income. And that they don't realize that all of that, is taxable. I mean, after your expenses and so forth and so on. So in that respect, what is it that they should really think about? What's the bottom line that what, is taxable to them?
Sure. I guess the biggest thing that I would encourage the small business owner to do is keep accurate records. Whatever it is, keep accurate records. We all know the guy that brings in his tax records and it's a big shoebox or it's a black plastic bags of the horror of my existence. Keep accurate records because it's really hard for a tax person to go through random records and find information. Yes, things are deductible items. You want to be sure that you pick up whatever it costs you to do your business. You have a cost of doing business. An example that I give is I had a client at one time that was he was a caterer. He made a regular trip to the Sonoma Valley to pick out wines for the year. And that was a totally deductible expense, totally deductible. Now, if Alina went to the wine country, that wouldn't be deductible. Maybe there might be a conference out there, but we could hope for that.
She would like it though.
That would be a nice idea. But it has to be related to the business. I mean, you know, that's, you know, when Mary's out here buying guns, that's an important piece of her business. She has to have that, the equipment there that goes along with this, how the holsters and that type of stuff, so that people learn. Every business is a little different, but you have to put it in terms of the story you can tell. Help me out as the tax preparer and tell me what you've got going on. Don't just bring a pile of crap into my office and say, here, go do this. You know, any number of clients, you won't believe how many clients would bring in wads of stuff. And among that, if I took the time to look through it, there would be receipts in there for the veterinarian. Now, I only had one client ever that needed a veterinarian receipts, and that was because he had this Mongo dog that was about this tall, and he was his guard dog. And that he had a gas station out to the east here somewhere. It was a repair shop, and that dog was his alarm system. That was his safeguard. Those veterinarian bills are deductible. But for the average person to try to tell me those veterinarian bills were their doctor bills, that doesn't work. That's the thing. Anybody have any questions on?
Howard, I just have one suggestion. I'm sure you tell your clients also that if they have a business, have separate checking accounts, business account and a personal. Yeah. Don't mix the two together, because then it's very difficult to identify what's personal and what's business.
Yeah, that's a big item. And that goes back to the categorization, making sure that you have some kind of an accounting system. I know that any number of folks here have said, I'm not a numbers person, I don't do that type of thing. Then find a numbers person. It really streamlines all your operations and makes it a whole lot easier to capture every possible deduction that you've got. Tax is a very exacting science. You have to have records. You have to show those records. You have to tell the story. Become very conversant. It goes back to the points here about, maintaining relationships. Be able to talk about your business and explain how you do your business, because those are key items. That not only helps you to relate to the tax person, but it helps you to relate to your customers, to your vendors, to other competitors, so that you all understand what you're doing. Each business has its own terminology, and you want to make sure you utilize that terminology to explain what you're doing.
Is there any accounting program that you recommend over another?
QuickBooks.
That's what we use.
Yeah, I started using QuickBooks a way long time ago. I use it extensively. I've used it for multi-million-dollar companies. It really does satisfy most needs for the small business. And it's not terribly expensive. I think it's probably a couple $100 now or something like that. It's not much. And you can especially, QuickBooks also makes an online version. I've got one client that I'm still working with where they keep all their records online. It's in the cloud, it's a QuickBooks product, but I can go on at any time and help them sort activities out and reclassify things. It makes my job a lot easier rather than looking at that black plastic bag full of stuff. That's not very good.
I will tell you, the online version is more difficult to use than the desktop version.
I would agree with you. I've got one client. If I had more than that, I might be a little crazy, but it is a little difficult to use. It is a little difficult, but the desktop is I think very friendly. I've used it for a lot of years, and I have nothing but good things to say about it. Who's somebody that I got in the healthcare business out there? Don't I have a couple healthcare people? Yeah, Latrice is. Latrice, now do you audit taxes for your business? Your sound.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I took my earbuds out. Can you repeat that for me?
Just wondering, you get involved in, are there any tax issues in the healthcare industry that you've got concerns about?
I was taking notes with the QuickBooks. Luckily for St. Louis Counseling, we have a whole department that takes care of that part for us. But when I was thinking about a lot of the business has turned to virtual, and previously it was in person. And so the insurance amounts, thank God, haven't changed because of the difference. But I don't know if there are any questions that I have for the healthcare business.
You've got a department that does your work for you. That makes it very wonderful.
Yeah, for
Latrice, didn't you say you've got your own side business though also that you do?
yes, yes. And scratching my head about a lot of the bookkeeping things, business really picked up this year, so taxes will be interesting to say the least. I may be that one with all the receipts in the bag for now, but I wanted to ask you about mileage though. So with mileage, when you are tracking that, is it necessary to have actual miles, or is there another way that you can track that for taxes?
You know, it depends on what you've got. What I used to do, and for myself personally, is I had my calendar on Outlook, and it had all the names of all my appointments on there. And if I did any mileage, I would put it into that Outlook date, that Outlook appointment, and I would always put miles by it in all capital letters. Then at the end of the year, I would be able to do a search for miles. And it would kick out everybody. It would show the name of the person, the client that I was visiting, all that type of stuff would be right there. I thought that was a pretty good deal to do it.
There is also an app that you can download, and you can keep track of your business miles. I don't know what the app is, but I know there is one because a friend of mine uses it.
Yeah, I've seen that, and it's it's a little. Now it even tells you how many miles. If you put in there, say, okay, I'm going to such and such place, it'll tell you the miles. It'll tell you what the mileage is, right? I think that's how that works. Yeah, it's a pretty neat little app. A lot of things that are out there. Hopefully, it's. I've had a few apps that I've loved, and then they've gone away because nobody supported them anymore, or something like that. So that's something always to be careful of too. Is what's the longevity of that app?
So do you have to keep track of the starting and the finished number, or
No.
you can just have the calculation of the entire trip?
I've never had it. Theoretically, in the IRS audit book, it is supposed to be the beginning and the ending mileage.
Okay.
But I've never had an audit where the auditor said, "Oh yeah, you got to have that."
Okay.
If you had the net miles, that was sufficient for the audit. And we just don't see many audits of that. I mean, they will ask for a audit, if you get into an audit, they will ask for a mileage log. And that's pretty much what I do with the miles out of Outlook. Boom, there it is, and I can hand it to them. But that's pretty much all they're looking for. And they're looking for a general idea that, some type of a seriousness that you are keeping track of your miles. Okay. Name of who you visited, that sort of stuff. That's it. And mileage is a big thing. Mileage is probably one of the things that gives you the most bang for the buck. So many other things, you have to prove expenses. Here's the expense. Mileage includes a lot of other things. So that's in there. Other questions? Anything at all? Record keeping, taxes, the PPP loans that came out this year. Everybody's aware that that's not a taxable item. That's money that is not, you don't have to report it, but you can report the expenses that it used to pay. That's a little bit of a dicey accounting situation, but that was interesting. I have an SBA loan against my building, and that came in pretty handy during the year. That was a good thing. Personal taxes is, I mean, you know, pretty much nobody does deductions, itemized deductions anymore. But this year we do have a $300 deduction on the front of the tax return that you can take. It is not a, you don't have to have a lot of detail for it. You can say it's $300. It helps. It's a little bit, not much, but it's a bit. Trying to think of anything else that's new and different.
Hey, Howard,
Yes, Luke.
stimulus checks, is that income tax? Do you have to report that?
You have to report it, but the purpose of reporting is to show that you got it or that you didn't get it. If you didn't get it, then that reporting of zero will produce a refund to you. You'll get a refund through your tax return. So people think that, well, if I've got to report it, that means it's taxable. No, it's just the IRS is doing a double check on their systems to make sure that they got the money out to everybody that wanted to have that money in their hands.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. Howard, one other question, you're gonna talk about accountants. I don't have one yet. I want to talk about that, or your opinion, how much it should cost for a small business like myself.
Boy, that's tough. Don't hold me down. That is really tough to come up with. It's tough. Actually, it's kind of tough to find a good accountant. I wish there were more out there that were available. I'm being a CPA. I'm partial to a CPA type of person, somebody that's got a good record of experience, has a certain course of study they've gone through so that they can provide the services to you. It depends on what you've got. I mean, if you've got, let's say if you've got, frequently the way I would look at it is how many checks do you write in a month? Okay, and that would be electronic checks or regular checks, whatever. And if I would look at that, I'd say, well, they have maybe, let's say 30 checks a month. Monthly cost there might be $100. That'd be a kind of an idea. Now, I've had clients where we've had 3,000 and 4,000 checks. Well, those guys got a $1,000 bill. Okay, that's, it kind of goes up with that. Some of it depends on employees. If you've got employees, that's another element that may add to the cost. There's so many payroll programs now. I'd be very careful about them. Payroll is probably the one thing that will get you caught in trouble with the taxing authorities so quick, because you've got to pay that tax withholding generally every month. Sometimes you can be on a quarterly basis, but boy, that is it. There's forms to file. There's a lot of timing. I would really advocate having a professional do it for you. There are some tax softwares out there that have come out in the last 5 years or so that are very, very good, and they take a lot of burden off of you. But I would always look to a professional to do the payroll side of the thing. That's an important thing, and that's again, it's probably based on number of employees, that sort of thing that you go through on that. Anything else any other wide open stream here that we can do anything you like?
Howard, this was very good. You did a great job in presenting this.
Thank you. Glad to help you guys out. The chamber has my number. If you have any kind of questions or anything down the road, as I said, I'm not looking for any new business. Okay, so I'm going to be. That's something you don't get very often. Okay, and so I'm there. And if you want to listen to me, go on. I'll tell you I'll tell you some war stories and tell how things work out. But that's you're all welcome to make use of me in any way you can.
Thank you
sorry, I had
very
to-
much. This was informative. Thank you.
I have one more question. Can you hang down for me? I'm sorry.
For a question, I got plenty of time. My golf time isn't until 2:00.
Okay, so I'm sorry I had to jump off. I got a phone call, but I wanted to know. So with most of my clients being virtual, so I'm not driving to clients, but I'm driving to my office to do the virtual business. Those miles are I can use those miles, correct?
No. No, if you're doing mileage from your home to your regular place of business is not deductible. Yeah, we could, you could sit there and talk for a while with your accountant and maybe figure out something. In this day when we got so many people working from home, maybe that could be, maybe that could be something, because that's not your regular place of work. I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. I'm just, as I said, it's always in the story. And if you have a requirement to be at, basically your requirements of work are met by being at home, then you can say, hey, look, whenever I go to the office, that's going to be mileage deductible. Now, I'm going to back up again on that. Let me hold that back. You're paid as a W-2 employee, am I right?
Um,
Do you get a paycheck and with tax withholdings and such?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for my job, but for the practice, no.
For the practice, you're on your, okay. Now, for your job, the mileage doesn't count for your job. That has gone by the wayside. That's out of there. Now, for your little practice that you do on the side, now that you fill out what's called a Schedule C, and that you would be able to take a mileage deduction on that. Okay? I'm sorry I got kind of off track there. I didn't think everything through, but that's the answer for you there.
Okay, all right. The one last thing, so once you have your taxes done, there's certain places and certain certifications that you apply for. They would like for a CPA to sign off on your records, right? Do you do that type of work, or do you have to do the taxes in order to put your signature on something?
Yeah, that's something that I had a lot of calls for that when I was in the business. Generally speaking, I did not do that. That's called audit work, or it had various terminologies that would go along with it. The insurance for me to do that type of stuff is extremely expensive. Generally, you have to find a CPA that is charitably minded, let's say, and they will do some work for you. But frequently, the number there is going to be in the thousands of dollars to do that, because it is just the liability insurance is outrageous there. It goes back to your healthcare business. You know how expensive health liability insurance is. Same way on accountants. It's tough to find. And so you want to, I know you're talking about things like grants and that sort of stuff, that they always want something there. Working with a CPA, finding out, they might be able to find some way to give you some sort of a testament of the validity of the numbers.
Okay. So with that being said, I said that was the last question, but one came up. So with that being said, can you give me a ballpark figure of how much it would be to hire you? I know you're not looking for business, but CPA. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If at some point I wanted to hire a CPA or hire you, what is a ballpark figure of how much that would cost?
What kind of work? For your side business?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but for to do like the month-to-month kind of reconciliation and then the taxes at the end of the year, just to have an income statement.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that with Mary before maybe you were off there, but the situation is usually it's number of checks written is a good idea. If we're talking 30 checks a month, maybe it's $100, $150, something like that, I guess. I mean, that's kind of what I used to charge. But if, you know, once he got into, then I had clients where we had thousands of checks. And that would be, the bill would get up to be 1,000. It would be, you know, pretty quickly on those kinds of things. Because that's
Okay.
a lot of reconciliation, a lot of work to make sure everything ties out.
I have a
And for
question.
that cost, it would provide like an income statement and everything at the end of the
Oh, yeah,
month.
that would be all included. They would produce an income statement, balance sheet, that sort of thing, whatever you would need.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa, you had a question?
Yes, so being a W-2 employee, and there's a lot of us now that are working out of our homes, what items would be tax deductible for us working out of our home being a W-2 employee?
Nothing,
Really?
yeah.
That's
They
sad.
took away, there used to be something was called other itemized deductions. And you could deduct certain expenses there, like what you're talking about, the expenses that you incurred by working from home.
Okay.
About 2, maybe 3 years ago, they eliminated that category, so you do not have anything. It never amounted to much anyway, okay?
Yeah.
It wasn't that sweet of a deal because they reduced it. I think the number was 1% of your income. So if you had $100,000, you had to reduce those expenses by 1,000 before you can deduct anything.
Okay, what if you're partial 1099 and full-time W-2?
Well, that 1099 is gold for you because that's reported on a NEC and non-employee compensation. And you can set up a Schedule C and use that to take some deductions, whatever
Okay.
your expenses were producing.
Okay,
Okay?
good to know, thank you.
Yep. Okay, guys?
Hey, Howard,
Yes, Mary?
can we get back? I want to bounce off of what Latrice was talking about with the accountant. Those checks you talked about, let's say the 30 per month, I'm writing them and he's or she is reconciling, giving me the balance statement, income statement. Is that what happens?
That's what happens, yes. That's it, yeah, you write the checks.
Hey, Howard, how much for just taxes?
For just taxes, how big of an operation do you got? Tax
I mean,
in my world now, I'm a cheap CPA, okay? In my world, a tax return basically starts out at maybe $175 and goes up. And that, $175 is a W-2, maybe some itemized deductions, some brokerage statement, something like that would be in that 175 range. You get into, I did a client the other day that I still do a few taxes here and there. Her brokerage statement was 50 pages long, okay? She paid a lot more than $175 because I had to go through a lot of transactions to record that.
okay.
I mean, that's, so if somebody comes in with a rental property or something like that, that's kind of common to see. Then you probably add another $100 to that. If they got 3 or 4 rental properties, you add $300 or $400. It's about $100 per property type of deal. If you're talking a regional CPA firm, that number is going to be $1,000. They've got a lot more resources they have to pay for than I do.
Use QuickBooks and download your bank statement directly to it. It'll save you so much time and effort and at the end. And it's very easy to use.
Are you talking about QuickBooks?
Yeah. Yeah, QuickBooks is a pretty universally accepted product. They do a nice job.
And you can just get access to your accountant.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really informative. I appreciate it.
Glad I could help you guys, okay?
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All righty,
Have a good
bye-bye.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
It's somewhere over here again. There's the lead.
And
In,
yeah.
there we go.